rehab session. Today I've been working on some of the rehab for what I thought was my hip flexor. And the reason I say I thought it was is because I previously had this injury that I believed to be my hip flexor, to be my psoas major. But I recently went in and saw my rugby club physio, who with decades of experience, I'm telling him and walking him through how I believe I've done it and the pains and the symptoms that I'm feeling, has said to me that he believes it's actually one of my attachments to my obliques coming down through my anterior of the hip, and worst case scenario that I could have a hernia in there. Hopefully not. I've been doing a little bit of training and it doesn't seem to be hurting too much during the actual training, but as I mentioned to my physio, there are a few particular movements where it is 7 out of 10 pain. He's given me a lot of advice. I'm going to show you some of that advice and some of the exercises and stretches that he's given me to do, a lot of which I've just been doing during my session that I've just finished now. And the session itself is a mixture of the things that I've been given by my physio, mostly stretching, a couple of exercises that I specifically used to warm up.
So this exercise, the hip squat, I want you standing with your right foot behind, shin vertical, and then take your bum back and down and roll down, head down, chin on chest, and then roll up. Don't flick up, just roll up, lifting from your buttock and rolling up. Without letting your left thigh turn inwards.
Alright.
Okay. I want you to do 30 of them. Roll down and roll up. Breathe in on the way down, breathe out on the way up.
And I've moved into doing some squats today that I'm taking from the Kneesovertoes guy, who's become big over the last year or so on Instagram and YouTube. He had an appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience as well.
But I'm like in the 1 in a million.
I paid a lot of attention to that and I've been watching his videos. The main reason I was doing one of his particular exercises is because, as I said, I believed that the problem that I had was with my hip. Now, there is an imbalance in my hip, and that's one of the reasons I've got the stretches I've been given by my physio, and I've been doing a lot of them today, but I still believe I do need to strengthen up my hip flexor nonetheless because of the amount of sitting down that I do on a daily basis when I go to work. Now, I'll put in the link to the description of the video that I watched with the Kneesovertoes guy, and he can explain in further detail why this exercise is particularly good for me and for my hip, or for people in general, for the hip flexor.
I really want all my intent on the vastus medialis. It's referred to as the VMO, vastus, large, medialis, toward the middle of the body. And the reason it's referred to as VMO is because that O stands for oblique because of its slanting nature.
Going into brief, what I've been doing, it started with the gentle kind of squat, bent over exercise, mostly on one leg, that my physio gave me. Then I also moved into the squats that I mentioned without any weight. I've got my heels raised, and this is hitting a specific group of muscles in the quads. One of the muscles that give your knees a lot of stability as well, and I've also had problems with my knees in the past, so these exercises were excellent for strengthening my knee. Now, what I actually did was 12 sets in total, starting with no weight at all. I'd done 2 sets of each. They were 6 reps at the time. I then moved up to use my 20 kilo, my weightlifting bar. This is only 20 kilos, as I mentioned. I started doing with front squat, so just resting on my fingers. I don't have a lot of flexibility in my shoulders at the moment, so it was quite a difficult one. It's just resting here. But I managed to do 5 reps on that. This wasn't a high repetition per set. I was doing 12 sets in total, along with some extra exercises and going back and forth with stretches as well. After 2 sets with the bar, I went up to 60 kilograms, so 2 20 plates on top of my 20 kilo bar. This is all the weight that I've got at the moment. I still need to invest in some extra plates as well, but I was doing, again, 2 sets of 5 front squats on each, and then each time I was coming out of doing a set of squats, I was doing some stretching. Again, I'll cut now to show you some of the other stretches that I was doing.
So first exercise, lying on your right side with your left knee bent up. Take a long, slow tummy breath in. Let your left shoulder fall backwards. And on the out breath, let that left shoulder fall towards the floor. Take a long, slow tummy breath in. That means no upstairs breathing. Okay, so you've got to come from here. And repeat twice daily in bed, morning and evening. 25 breaths each time. Your aim is to have your left knee and left shoulder on the floor at the same time.
We can all agree that the stretches that I was doing in there were probably leaving me the most uncomfortable one in the room. But for multiple reasons, I was uncomfortable. I was still uncomfortable doing these stretches today. They're not particularly kind stretches while your hips are unbalanced and pretty tight as well. But they've been doing me a lot of favours and helping me to open up my hips a bit more and help me to continue doing the exercise that I want to do today, so I can continue hopefully building some muscle. As I said, I've done 12 sets, so 6 so far with front squats with the weight on the front. Luckily having a bit of extra weight, it's then forcing the weight to pin my fingers down a bit further and hopefully get a bit more of a stretch in my shoulder. That's helpful when you're doing any kind of lifting really, but especially if you're doing front squats. I like to do a bit of weightlifting, so anytime I'm doing a clean, I need to get it up to that position. Really want to be able to bring your elbows as far forward as possible, and you need that flexibility there. So front squats with a bit of weight helps you to stretch out your shoulders, as well as the exercise obviously on your legs as well. Now I actually did the reverse, so I kept the 60 on and I'd done 2 sets of back squats in the same position with my heels raised. That was seemingly easier than doing front squats, although I had to adjust for the balance a little bit. After doing the 5 reps, 2 sets with 60 kilos, I then done a drop set. As I said, I've done it in reverse. So I then had just the bar and on the back. Again, obviously it got easier, there's less weight, but it was, again, shifting my weight back and forward. It was a little bit more difficult to align myself properly and keep the bar in the proper position, because obviously with my heels raised I should be able to go a little bit lower. It should be easier while I've got quite tight ankles as well than doing a completely flat footed squat. As I said, I was doing squats and then stretching and going back and forward, so we can have a look at one of the other main stretches I'm doing, a lunge stretch that I've been doing with my physio. He told me to do that regularly, so I need to really be doing that every single day, getting as deep as I can into that squat. So here it is, me with my physio.
So when you do this at home, have your elbows on the sofa in front of you. Try not to lean to the left. Just go and keep you centered.
Walking now, I can definitely feel it.
So now squeezing your left buttock with the hip flexors and quads on stretch to the front. So we're using reciprocal relaxation using the antagonist, i.e. the glutes. For 30 seconds, have a 5-second, 10-second rest, and then repeat 5 to 10 times. You want to be feeling that stretch at the front of the hip.
Again, looking particularly uncomfortable, but then we can go and have a look at me performing it now in between sets, so a little bit more comfortable for me, but I'm still able to push myself a little bit further into that lunge, the lunge stretch, which is again opening my hip up and helping me to continue performing throughout my training session. After doing the bar only back squat, I finished off my 11 and 12 set with weightless, so body weight squat, but in the same position. So I actually managed to do a few extra reps because I didn't have any weight. I was feeling pretty good still at the end of the session. I done 10 sets, making sure I get nice and low, do a little stall in the middle there and come back up. I felt pretty good at the end of this session. Hopefully going to get myself back to a point that I can begin to sprint. I'm still doing a little, I've just got back into a little bit of running in fact, so recently done a 10k, which might seem like it was a bad idea given I had a bit of an injury, but I pushed through the first kilometre, and once I believe a bit of blood flow got going, I built into a bit of a rhythm with my stride. The pain seemed to go away, so happily starting to build up my cardio again, where I haven't been doing much of it lately. Even with the assault bike back there, I haven't been doing too much riding. So yeah, I need to be doing some running if I want to play rugby this season, and if I want to continue playing squash, and eventually hopefully a couple of other sports that I wouldn't mind throwing my hand at again. So at the end of this session, I say it was a positive. I've also done a 24-hour fast just a day ago, 2 days ago I finished. So that coupled with back into a kind of a paleo looking diet, I'm going to be starting to make my way back down towards that goal of 85 kilos, where I feel is my good athletic weight, while also, as I mentioned, being healthy, having a good diet, hopefully sleeping well, and not starving myself of course, but enjoying where I am and how I'm feeling. So, end of the session, good session, positive.